Hello, and welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, rate, review, and subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We want to hear your thoughts on the movies and shows we review.
Leave us a comment on Apple Podcasts or our YouTube channel, and we will read them during the show.
Or reach out to us on social media. We love talking all things entertainment and pop culture with you.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
What's up, Delora? We are back with a new week and a new recap. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm great. I'm excited because I don't know if we just have started giving people more time, but we have not flipped and turned around a series quite this quick from its finale in a while. So
a long while.
This was one, though, that we said, this is hot off the presses. This is what everybody's talking about in these streets.
Yep.
Arguably the hottest show on television. Guys.
It's really good.
We got to dive into Paradise, okay? Hulu.
Let's do it.
8 episodes released weekly beginning in January of this year. Quick summary. A Secret Service agent investigates the murder of a former president in a seemingly peaceful community. Creator, Dan Fogelman. Cast, the Sterling K. Brown as Xavier Collins.
Yay!
James Marsden cut you with his cheekbones.
We used to call him cheekbones, me and my sister, because I'm telling you.
The Notebook is one of the hardest love triangles because of those cheekbones.
When I tell you, there was this older lady who was like, I didn't like her choice. Like, why do we always glorify going with the broke guy? I was like, yo.
That wasn't it. That wasn't it. That wasn't it.
That tickled me. I was like, sis has a point. Okay. Looking like that.
Y'all are hilarious. All right. All right. He stars as President Cal Bradford. We have Julianne Nicholson as Samantha, aka Sinatra. We have Sarah Shahi as Dr. Gabriella Torabi. We have Chris Marshall as Agent Robinson. Nicole Brighton Bloom as Jane. Aaliyah Maston as Presley. Charlie Evans as Jeremy Bradford. And John Beavers as Agent Billy Pace. Reviews, Rotten Tomatoes, 82% critic score, 83% audience score, and 74% of Google users gave this series a thumbs up. Google, y'all are tripping. Delora, what is your grade for Paradise?
All right. So my grade for Paradise is, it's an A. Okay. It was such an original story. And you mentioned Dan Fogelman as the show creator. We know him from his work, This Is Us. He writes his characters so well, so thoroughly. Like, you understand their motives. You can figure out their next actions. I was invested, Ashley. I will say the spoiler alert that we get like 2 episodes in, I was not ready for that at all. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait, what do you mean? What's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, where are we? Truly. I typically don't care for that type of, story. But he did it really well, and I was extremely impressed. And the acting, across the board, phenomenal.
Yeah, this is a super easy A for me. I don't think I've had a show knock me out like this in quite a while, especially for me going into it without any expectations, because this was not a series that I had heard about a lot, knew anything about. I just remember seeing maybe 1 or 2 clips or trailers and then immediately be like, okay, I'm gonna check this out on Hulu. And I started it, reeled me in, never
I
let
went
me
in
go.
very cold, and I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. To your point, this is a political thriller. This is a dystopian post-apocalyptic
Yeah. That's
tale.
that's what I
Like
mean. Like
it's
I'm
mixed
usually don't like
genre
my yeah. And
and
it
it does a good
also
job.
gave me the feels from back in the day, like Shondaland with the whole political intrigue. It's giving me Scandal memories. When that show was hot, it was hot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right at the inception of tweeting live. So
Yeah.
made it even hotter. But yeah, I'm glad you went back and referenced Dan Fogelman and the whole This Is Us connection because as I said at the end of last episode, you know, Dan Fogelman handpicked really Sterling to be leading this cast, and I could not imagine anybody doing a better, more incredible job than he did as Xavier Collins throughout this series.
Exactly. And he has
So
experience. He used to be in a military show before This Is Us. So I just think this is a great callback. You know, the world got to know him, as Randall, but he was working in one of his bigger projects before was a military show.
all right. Well, spoiler alert, guys. Let's get into the good. So, again, the star of this series is Xavier Collins. He is a Secret Service agent and lead agent for President Cal Bradford. He was picked as lead agent for a variety of reasons, one being that apparently it didn't hurt that he was black. What'd you think about that conversation that Xavier had with the president in the Oval?
I think it was an interesting conversation in light of the world that we live in. There were several things in the show that maybe cackled now that we're living in the time that we are. I'm like, I know y'all filmed this way before this shit show happened. So who would have thunk it? And apparently someone did in fiction. Um, but yeah, the idea that he was hired because it didn't hurt that he was black. I'm sure this is something that has crossed people's minds through the years. I think it was a great introduction to the president and his character and even his humor.
Yep.
Um,
Take your shoes off.
yeah,
When you come in. Oh, you actually did it. That was so cute. Like he definitely was disarming to me, like when you first met him and you didn't really know what to expect. And then to see the dynamic between he and Xavier and how Xavier still has to kind of micromanage his feelings in that moment to be
yes.
told that because this is his boss. I was like, never ends. Never ends. But it did help to play into and get an understanding of the start of their relationship and their dynamic for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So after a seemingly normal morning routine, we see Xavier come to the president's home and find him dead in his bedroom. He delays calling it in until he and another agent he trusts, Billy, could investigate the scene. Too bad we find out that Billy had actually been on duty and was slacking that night, took a nap while security cameras were frozen for an hour and a half. Why and what were your feelings when Xavier first found the president and he did not immediately call it in? What was your reaction?
My initial reaction was that Xavier didn't trust the people around him. I never wavered in how I felt about Xavier throughout this series. If anything, I felt like the stick was way up his ass at certain points. But in terms of his overall integrity, I never doubted it. So the fact that he didn't call it in, I was like, I think he thinks something is wrong,
Yeah.
not that he was trying to cover something up.
You trusted his judgment and you felt he was doing what was going to be best, not that it made him a suspect.
Correct.
Yeah. And I would agree.
And Billy, I had my heckles up with Billy um because of his actions. Like, what do you mean you took a nap? Why was the cameras up? Like, and why And then on top of that, this doesn't look like the White House. Are we talking about a past president? Like, I also was trying to orientate myself as well. Like,
Yeah, what timeline are we on? Is he no longer in office and this is the
right,
Secret Service that has followed him out of the office? Yes, we did not
correct.
know the timeline exactly from that scene that we had seen previously, right?
And
Um,
then more
Billy
importantly,
disappointed me more than anything because I'm like, this is
yeah,
the president.
I know,
You
I know.
mean?
What like, so that's why I was under the assumption I'm like, he's taking naps, so this must be a past president or something. Like, you know what I mean? And more importantly, what do you mean James Morris Marsden character is gone? Like, no, no. What about season 2?
Yeah, the fact they kill him, but Dan Fogelman was like, well, just like with This Is Us, we didn't have, a character who was pivotal to the show alive, Jack, and yet he was still so integral throughout the entire
So
series.
integral. That's so
So,
sad.
yeah,
Oh, that makes me sad.
yeah. In flashbacks, we see that Xavier once thwarted an assassination attempt on the president during a press conference on the White House lawn. After he returns to duty, the president brings him in on top secret information that the world is soon facing an extinction level catastrophe and an underground city is being built in Colorado for a chosen group. Do you think that the president would have brought Xavier in and warned him had he not taken that bullet?
No, I think that bullet gave him the golden ticket.
Mm, I agree. I think that he felt indebted to him in a way that he didn't feel
Yes,
to anybody else to make sure he was going to be okay.
I agree.
In a tense exchange between Cal and Xavier, the night Cal dies, he asks Xavier if he can forgive him. And we soon realize that they are in present day living in that underground city. So that extinction level event has happened and it's been 3 years. And apparently, Xavier's wife, Terry, she ain't make it, baby. And
He
clearly,
did
Xavier
not.
blames Cal for the circumstances. This was a bombshell, right? Because it was
Yep.
like, you talk about timeline. Oh, damn.
Yeah.
We living in a
Yeah.
fake little bubble?
Crazy.
And what
But
did
I'm
that
not gonna
mean? What
lie.
was the event?
What and that was my big question is like, what was the event and what did he do? Like, you know what I mean? Like for Xavier to blame the president of the United States is like, what did he do to warrant this level of animosity? And then why is he still working for him if he hates him this much, right?
And then, are we sure he didn't kill him? Because,
Right, because of the hate. So that
yes.
does drop a little bit of doubt in Xavier's character, sure, sure. But like I said, I think, like I said, my thoughts were he didn't trust somebody around there and he wanted to get the scope before things started getting tampered.
Yeah. It was definitely a lot of questions that were raised with that bombshell and hooked us in, I feel like, as viewers. So let's talk about Sinatra, the billionaire boss lady of paradise. She came through after Cal's body was discovered, and it was very clear she was the HBIC baby. And in flashbacks, we see she brought the crew together to work on the underground city. And that on a personal note, we get a chance to see her meet cute with her husband in a bar, as well as the illness and death of her young son. Cue Dr. Gabriella Tarabi, therapist and grief specialist. After we see the events that transpired and then see what has now become of Sinatra, do you think that Dr. Tarabi really helped her at all in dealing with her grief?
That's a great question. Ultimately, no. However, I will say I believe Tarabi felt like she did everything she could do within her power. But at the end of the day, Tarabi ain't God. And this woman needed Jesus because
Woo, baby.
the
Yes.
level of control issues that she had. I was thinking about this too. It's like, what is a villain? Even when we know the backstory, right? Like, what makes them the actual villain versus someone with a sad story, right?
And this has been complicated more and more, I feel like, in content that's come out over the last few years.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we've had very clear villains in the past that even in reincarnations, like we were talking about Cobra Kai
Yeah.
previously, is Johnny really a villain? Was he ever? Or was he just an unfortunate young man who came from a bad home and irresponsible and reckless adults?
Right.
We talk about Killmonger all the time. Killmonger had a hell of a reason
Yeah.
to be a villain, if that's what we want to label him. So I think it's a great question. And I'm sure there are some people on some Reddit thread somewhere that will argue that Sinatra is not a villain. For the sake of the series, in my heart and mind, the things she did are unforgivable. And that's what makes her a villain.
Absolutely.
And because she is in a
Absolutely.
position of power and influence, it's utter villainy, right?
When you are using people as pawns, yeah, in a very literal way, I think that's when the villainy comes rearing its ugly head.
Yeah, I almost think too, and I don't know, season two could prove me wrong. I think Dr. Tarabi was too soft to help Sinatra. I think, you know how they say you have to date your therapist or date therapists to find the right one?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, again, that there was anybody who could have done a better job, but I just wonder if her approach, her she seems like she's one of those therapists who's more nurturing, very understanding, a lot of things. Maybe she needed a tougher therapist.
I felt like Dr. Tarabi was useless in this show. Obviously she wasn't useless with the level of power that she was given, but in terms of like her effectiveness, I was unimpressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Difficult with the dynamics, but yeah. So during the investigation into Cal's murder, Xavier is given a lie detector and interrogated by Agent Robinson, who had been sleeping with Cal, we find out. Was this a conflict of interest or no?
Absolutely. But at the same time, we know that we live in the bottom of a mountain for how long, no one knows. People are bound to bump uglies because that's just human nature. So I thought it was interesting because Cal is technically still married. Like, where's his wife?
In her own residence.
But yeah, I did think it was a conflict of interest, but then I also felt like, who cares? Because this is the end of the world. Like,
Mm. More concerned with the finding out who did it than who's handling who did it in your mind.
correct.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. One of the reasons why I was a huge fan of The Walking Dead, because before, if you asked me to watch a zombie show, I would have been like, why would I want to do that? The show was so freaking well written. Not about the zombies. The zombies is more so, like I was talking about in the last podcast, the macro things. What mattered was the human interaction and what happens when society as we know it no longer has the agreements, right? Those agreements are out the freaking window. How does humanity interact with one another? The fact that he is having sex with a woman that is within his proximity is not far fetched. You know what I mean? So for me, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, for me more than anything, I just didn't like that the black female agent and the black male agent have beef. I was like, no, 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 no. We need to be working together. Okay? I don't like this.
Okay, Rebel Ridge.
Yep, exactly. I ain't always got to be with you, but I ain't got to be against you either.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. So Sinatra and the other billionaires of Paradise agreed to tell the public, the people, that Cal died of natural causes. I was really on the fence about this because on the one hand, like, I get that sometimes you should not and cannot tell people everything because it will cause panic and all these things in terms of, the morale of the city and what needs to
Hysteria.
happen. But at
Yep.
the same time, like, again, I don't like Sinatra being this puppet master who
Yep.
dictates what gets told and what doesn't and how the narrative is created. So I was really on the fence about this. Like, inevitably, you should just tell the truth because I felt like it was going to come out eventually anyway.
It always sets you free.
Let's talk more about Dr. Tarabi. So she helped Xavier during that lie detector, and we find out she has been Sinatra's right hand woman when handpicking the 25,000 people who would live in paradise, as well as helping to craft the day to day psychological experience of living there. You talk about levels of control she had. Did
Yep.
you like her, or better yet, did you trust her?
I did not trust her, especially because I feel like she knew a lot and didn't do anything with it. You know what I mean? Like her proximity to power in this conversation, she let a lot of stuff go, and I didn't like that. So did I like her? I feel like I was indifferent to her. I felt like she was ineffective. She was ineffective with how she handled Sinatra and even Xavier eventually. If anything, I was rooting for him to get laid because I felt like you didn't want that. For me, I felt
We'll
like
get there.
he
But
needed
that's the
to
absolute thumbs down for me.
get
I
out of his
fast
rep.
forwarded through that scene. That's how strongly I felt about it.
Oh, okay.
I hated it. Hated it. Hated it. Hated it.
I'll let you get there.
Okay. Before we get there, Xavier, we get more background on, had wanted to follow in his grandfather and father's footsteps to become a pilot, right? They make a point to say that his grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman, his
Yes.
father, one of the first black commercial pilots. Big deal, big shoes to fill. But he didn't make the cut due to poor eyesight and became a Secret Service agent instead. Obviously, still succeeded, knocked it out of the park. One of those
Right.
type of people.
Mm-hmm.
But he ended up having a falling out with his father after he essentially forced his dad into retirement due to his Parkinson's diagnosis. This is a major moral and ethical dilemma
Let me tell you.
he found himself in. But did you
Yep.
agree with his choice to force retire his daddy?
So here's the deal. There were levels of overstepping, I felt. But because he's so duty bound, his actions made sense. I don't know. There could have been a better way of delivery or something, but the difficulties that I had while watching it was this. You were talking about a man who, as you mentioned, was one of the first Black men to fly commercial airline. There's a level of pride associated with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you get older, men with pride, and then they get diagnosed with something that they cannot control, there's this fight, right? And he was literally holding on to his occupation, you know, with by the skin of his teeth, right? Because he once that's gone, what does he have after that, right?
Yep.
And so I do understand Xavier's actions of having to do something because I don't think his father was going to do something about it in a reasonable amount of time. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And also, he was putting the public in danger. That is what I did agree with.
Correct.
Like,
And
you are
that's
in a
where,
job that you could kill people.
yes. And that's where I was like, I understand his actions. But then again, the issue that I have is these are very bold moves to make behind your father's back. And that's where I felt like there could have been a better approach to this.
Yeah, man. I agreed with his decision. I just don't think I would have made that decision. And I don't know what that says about me, but
Mm.
I want to have such a strong moral compass in moments like that where I would do what I know is right. But it's tricky when you're dealing with your loved ones. It always is. Love complicates your intellectual insights, right? Because
Yeah,
you
and then
know he should not be flying, period.
right, right. And I think they said how many years after he finished flying he passed on. It was relatively
Quickly.
quick.
Yes.
And in some ways you kind of almost know that, right? That's why you hear about lawyers being lawyers until they're 100 years old because they feel like they need to keep doing something. And I know it's a little different because obviously lawyers both feet are on the ground, right?
I mean, they still
They're
could if
not
they're a defense
there.
attorney or prosecution, really
Still
have
can
a lot
affect
of
people's lives.
influence. Yeah.
That's true. So yeah, it's a messy situation. I have no desire to ever have to go through it.
Girl, same here. 1000% agree. All right, let's talk about this hookup now. So I hated to see it. Like I said, the first time I had to fast forward quickly through it. Like I appreciated the background. I appreciated learning more about him through his conversations with Dr. Tarabi.
Yes,
But
I thought you were
again,
talking about his booty because he is fit. Okay.
no, no, nothing like that. This is just not, you talk about, I'm all for getting you some. And his wife been gone for a while.
And that's where
I
my
am
mind was
all
when I
for
said
getting you
that.
some. I want him to be
Yes.
happy, but this was not the character I wanted him to get him some with
But
because
who else is hot like him? You know what I
it,
mean?
it doesn't matter. It could be Jane Doe off the street. Dr. Tarabi, I felt like the whole scenario was manipulative and I just hated it for him. I don't like her getting in
Especially
your
towards the
psyche.
end.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
like her.
Because it
I don't
felt
like
like a
any of it.
seduction, not a genuine, like, I'm attracted to you. I think we could work type
And
of
it's not
deal.
even just that. It was not just a body fuck. She was mind fucking him.
He was. Yeah, she absolutely was. Especially because I'm like, what do you mean you need to get in the shower? Like,
And
and
then she's
obviously,
cool with Sinatra. Like the whole scenario, her being cool with Sinatra, I just didn't like it. I didn't trust it. I felt like it was so wrong. I hated to see it. And to his point, he is married. So like, yes, he may think Terry's dead all this, but we're watching the series, and I'm like, let his wife pop up. Let his wife pop up because he is still a married man. Okay. I don't appreciate this. I don't like this. And in my mind, that's still Beth's husband too. And in my mind, that's still his real life wife's husband.
yeah,
So
Ryan, but they
he everybody's husband but yours.
exactly,
And I don't like it.
exactly, sex life.
I don't like it.
Call back,
I don't
call
like
back.
it. Yeah,
I didn't watch season 2, by the way. Did you?
I did. It went a totally different direction.
Oh,
But yeah, it wasn't for me. But anyway, what she ends up telling him during this encounter is that Cal had a message that if anything ever happened to him, let Xavier know that Billy Pace is dangerous. They made a whole point of like trying to show Billy in this like sinister light and all this stuff. Did you take this and run? Did you immediately have a bullseye on Billy after this comment?
that is a great question. I was mixed on Billy. I really was.
I didn't know what to make of it because we meet Billy in paradise. He was not someone that
Yes,
we saw like in flashbacks to the White House scene. So I
right.
didn't know where Billy came from. I didn't
True.
know what was going on. So I was like, I mean, why is Billy sitting outside his house watching his daughter? You know what I mean? Like it did make him seem very suspicious. So I was like, all right, guess we got to keep our eye on this person.
Well, because this is a thriller, though, you know, I was suspicious of everyone, right?
To a certain extent, yes, everybody.
So it was not far fetched to feel some kind of way about Billy.
Back to Cal's murder investigation. Turns out that Billy and another agent, Jane, who he's secretly dating, they froze the security cameras intentionally so that they could play Wii tennis. I literally have in my notes, is entertainment that limited? Was this not prioritized in Paradise? What do people do for fun? What do people do for entertainment down there?
Besides each other, that we
Besides
learned
each
from.
other. Because you think about it, do they have TV? Do they have, you know what I mean? Like, what does their entertainment look like? And I can't imagine. That's a big factor of our lives. So just imagine,
Yeah.
what do they do just as a society for fun? Besides a carnival we will later see that was a big deal. I thought that was a very fair
Which
point
was
in
very
question.
retro too.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt like we were back in like the 60s,
Yep.
70s. Cut to Billy's backstory. We find out he killed his abusive uncle when he tried to force him to kill his dog. He was incarcerated and continued to have violent encounters and was eventually recruited into a secret special forces operation. He really thought he was going to be able to leave this past behind him in paradise. But Sinatra, she forces this man to continue to be a killer. Cal sent 4 scientists out of the cave back to Earth, the rest of Earth, the rest of wherever we are, North America, to see if it was still inhabitable. And guess what? It is.
She said, "You can breathe."
And girl, she sent Billy to go ahead and make sure they ain't never come back because they were trying to bring back a survivor. The audacity. But when Billy, he comes and threatens Sinatra over Xavier and his kids, he basically signs his death warrant.
He did. I was so sad. I'm like, sir, do you know what you're doing? I understand he was so protected. This is where my, the bleeding heart comes out because I'm just like, oh man, he had never had a family before. He had never known love. Who knows where his parents was, but his guardian was crap. Him killing him over that dog too was crazy. Yeah, I felt sorry for him. And I did feel like he was too reactive, but again, I don't think he was known to have much control when it comes to his emotions. You know what I mean? Regulating
I wish he would have just killed Sinatra on the spot.
instead of making those threats, right?
Yeah. Because
But
don't
again,
threaten her and
my
then
deal is
leave.
like, dude, do you realize you know too much to be giving threats to somebody who will not bat an eye for your death?
Yeah. And the question was just who? Who was it going to be? Who was the biggest mofo that Sinatra had? Oh, my guy. It turns out it was Jane.
Yep.
She's not sweet or innocent after all. She is Sinatra's henchwoman. He was honey potted. When I say I felt horrible for Billy in those moments, he's gasping, dying, knowing that this woman did this to him, knowing he had finally found what he thought was some normalcy and some happiness. I was devastated.
Jane ain't got all her marbles.
She definitely don't. She definitely don't. I sent you too the fact that she is the fiance of Jennifer Aniston's ex-husband, Justin Theroux. I said, excuse me?
You kind of
Jane?
spoiled it for me, Ashley. I was still making it through when you said that. So I didn't get a chance to react to it.
I was just like, what is happening right now?
It's a small world. It's Hollywood, baby.
I guess age gaps be damned. I'm sorry though. I didn't mean to give you any type of spoilers, but
no worries. I just let you know. I'm like, man, okay. Who did she kill?
And I thought about it after I sent it. Like, I probably shouldn't say killer because I don't know where she is. Yeah, that's my fault. So Billy, at least in my heart and in my mind, had 3 good years, right? Like, at least, if nothing else, God bless him. But my question was, besides my spoiler, did you see Jane coming? Like, would you, from her behavior, did you have, as you were watching back, any clues to indicate that this would be who would take this man out?
Did I have any clues? I would say no. But again, my hackles were up on everybody. Like this whole we put the cameras out for an hour to play we felt like a stretch to me. Like it would have been more realistic to me if they were like hooking up during that time. Like, you know what I mean? Playing we? What? What?
Again, what do they have for entertainment? And why is Cal hoarding the Wii? You think he's up
Why
here
is there only
playing?
one apparently?
Exactly. You think he's up here playing? He's drinking. Cal's day drinking. He ain't worried about no video games. When Xavier kicks through the door and discovers the body alongside Jane, I was like, wait, don't Jane have a key? Why are we kicking through doors? I read that the writer of this episode, who is Steve from Full House, by the way, felt,
What?
yes, Steve, DJ's boo from Full
Aladdin?
House. Yep. He's the writer of this
He's
episode.
a writer?
Yep.
Good for him.
Yep. He said that he felt that despite Jane killing Billy, she actually did care about him, if that gives anyone any solace.
Boo. Nobody believes that. Boo. You can save it. Save it.
They ended up ruling Billy's death a suicide by fentanyl. And I was like, wait, does he have any history of drug abuse?
Has he ever been high? Like, Xavier would know.
Exactly. It felt very convenient and lazy to me that they would just run with that, especially because we now know this is potentially a second murder. Like
that, and I'm curious on the death rate in this town, in Paradise.
Cal was the first one.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so for this to happen literally the next day or 2 days, or let's just say within the week, this is very suspicious.
Exactly. Cal's relationship with his father is shown quite a bit in this series as well. Bit different than Xavier's. He told his dad, listen, I just want to become a high school teacher. I want to leave this family business stuff behind. It's not for me. His dad said, you right. The family business ain't for you, but guess what? You're not about to be teaching no snot-nosed kids the same curriculum every year. You're going into politics. Why did Cal follow his daddy's advice or his forceful advice? Is it because he didn't want to get cut off? Is it because he admired his father? What do you think it was that Cal, as a grown man, he was grown, did what his father told him to do?
So I'm assuming, based off of the character Kane Bradford, he's the king of industry, and Cal is his, desired son, because everybody wants an heir, right? I would say this. I feel like people like Cal are indoctrinated. Carry on the family name, family pride, man, alpha, household, wealthy, golf. You know what I mean? Like, and he knew his aspirations were much smaller than that. But again, there's a level of, I might even say, guilt of not following in the footsteps of the great men before him. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm going to take my daddy's lead.
As abusive verbally as he was, yes. But unfortunately for Cal, he became an alcoholic, right? Because this was not remotely
because he was not happy
how he wanted to live his life.
I think he did pretty well considering, right?
I mean, I guess he could have been doing heroin instead, crack.
No, I'm saying, like, for him
as a
not
leader,
to have won the job, he still did it to the best of his ability.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think it was ever, I mean, his father may have made him feel this way, but I don't think it was ever a question of if he could do it, I think that he had the capacity to do whatever he wanted to do. And that's one of the saddest things to me about him is that he lived a life in service of everybody except himself, really.
Yes.
And that makes me sad for him. But his dad was one of the first people that Sinatra recruited for the build out of Paradise. And he actually ended up having a higher clearance level on classified details than even Cal did. And his daddy only got meaner with an Alzheimer's diagnosis. Like that, were you ever proud of me conversation?
Crazy.
Was rough.
Crazy. I think the one thing about this show, what it did well was show that the president isn't necessarily the end all be all character.
Yeah. You already gave me a little bit of your thoughts on Cal's relationship with his father. What about Cal's relationship with his own son, Jeremy? Because we get their dynamic as well. And Jeremy had some very harsh words for his father.
I feel like Cal's relationship with his son suffered because he wasn't living in his purpose, right? It took up so much of his time, and the way he coped with it by drinking took away precious time he could have with his son.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that Jeremy was an arrogant little shit, though, at the same time. I felt like he was so of himself and of his opinion that it's like, I hear you forming your own opinions. I hear you, but you still don't know the half of
Oh, yeah.
it.
And he's also young, right? Like, you have no
Yeah.
idea the
Yeah.
burden that's on the shoulders of your father. You have no idea.
And kind of like we were saying, I think in our episode last week, where people are like, oh, adulting, y'all make it look easy or whatever. And it's like, we are doing what we can with what we got.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your
Like,
daddy is the president. The president.
exactly. I think he could have been kinder to his father.
Absolutely. I also wonder how much influence his mother had in that because we don't
Yes.
see the dynamic of that full family.
I felt like the first lady was absolutely underutilized in this season.
I would
Like,
agree.
I didn't like, was she a Millie or nah? Like, you know what I mean? Was she a Hillary? Because we all know it's all based off of
Yeah, we
that.
only get a rare glimpse into her when she has a conversation with Xavier. That's the only time we really have a full conversation from her.
Yeah. And so, yeah, does he have resentment over his parents' relationship and the fact that everybody knows that Cal was sleeping with, you know, Agent
Agent
Robinson?
Robinson.
So, yeah,
Yeah. And also, he is of a certain age where I feel like they have a lot of opinions, but whatever. So, speaking of those classified details, we do get additional insight into the expedition to the surface with those four scientists. Again, they found a survivor and wanted to bring that survivor back, and that's why they were killed. And when Sinatra explains this logic to Cal, because he confronts her, did you agree with Sinatra's thoughts that she was acting in the best interest of the Paradise residents by not allowing outsiders to come into the bunker or really for residents to find out the truth?
I feel like she was serving her own self interest. I think she didn't want to be bothered with new people. I think she didn't anticipate it, and she had no desire to make adjustments because then it's out of her control. I think she was the ultimate control freak. And the idea of bringing people in was too much of an unknown. So she would rather eliminate them than try to figure out ways to invite them into their community.
I put in my notes, I'm not the person to make those kinds of decisions because, on the one hand, I can find justification in her logic, even though the actions themselves are atrocious. On the other hand, um, well, let me start there. I had the thought throughout the series that people on the outside, once they find this bunker, may try to take all y'all out because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
y'all didn't let them in here. So
Nope.
they could come in here and try to kill all of y'all. But at the same time, the human side of you, how can you deny other human beings this access to this place that you've created that you know that they could survive in and live a better life than what they have out there? Like the human side of you, how can you deny them that? But it's not a decision I would want to have to make because you
It
could
is
be
definitely a
putting
tough
the residents
decision
of paradise in imminent danger. You could be, but you're
because they could
also,
have like a disease or something and we don't know anything about
there could
it,
be all
right?
sorts of issues. But at the same time, if I deny the human beings who have survived a extinction level event and potential nuclear war and the loved ones of the people who are still in paradise access to come back, like I couldn't do it. I I couldn't do it.
I think the villainy comes into place when they try to stop free speech, right? Because at the end of the day, even if they made the decision to keep the unknown people out of the bunker, she did make the decision to kill the people who they sent out
No
because they
survivors.
no survivors. So you're saying, let's say we keep those outsiders out. That means you don't want the people who've been out to start talking, right?
Yeah,
Start giving
exactly.
people ideas
Exactly.
and
She
yeah,
doesn't want
yeah,
anyone to know the truth. That Earth, that what's left of Earth and whatever is inhabitable. Especially again, you got the Xaviers who are like, but my wife is out there. He's not going to be the only one who has a loved one or loved ones out there. But who are you to deny people the truth? Who are you to do that?
right. And it also it just the way that she allowed human life to be so disposable in that way, like gross.
Yeah. They're lying to you was put up in big red letters in the sky in paradise, thanks to Xavier and his neighbor who owed him a favor for keeping his illegal dog secret. A whole plan is set in motion. Xavier, Agent Robinson, some other agents band together to steal Paradise's stash of guns and take the billionaires hostage while really also attempting to fuck over Sinatra. I kept thinking, why didn't she send out Killer Jane for Xavier initially instead of Dr. Tarabi? Is it because Xavier is less expendable than Billy? Because he has children, it would be more of a situation if he showed up dead? Because usually she goes with the machete, not with the butter knife.
Huh. That's a great point. I don't know.
That was my thought. Like it has to be that she just doesn't see him as quite as disposable of a person. She's like, who's gonna really miss Billy?
Yeah, I can see that with Billy because he didn't have anybody quote unquote like
Yeah, because his girl was the killer.
right.
Like Dr. Tarabi messed up this plan though, which gave Sinatra the upper hand. And when Xavier came to her house to confront her, she told him that his wife is alive.
That's why I felt like Dr. Tarabi was trash because it's like when she has the chance to do something, it's like she's not fully committed because she wants to find everyone's humanity. Everybody ain't got it, sis. Okay.
I mean, she don't even know the half of it. That's what's so disappointing. Like, where's your own doubts? Where's your own thoughts about what's
Discernment.
actually going on here? You just
Exactly.
taking Samantha's word for it? That doesn't even make sense at this point. But episode 7 has to have its own moment. This is again arguably one of the best episodes of television that's ever been done. This is the penultimate episode of the season, and it was incredible. We finally see what happened today. The shit hit the fan, and the world as we know it ended. So much happened on that day, so much chaos. We see the news, we see the reporters that were out there, we see the scientists discussing it, we get to see people within the White House's reactions. It was a lot. It was a lot to digest. Did you agree with Cal's decision, inevitably, to tell people the truth? He had recorded a version of an announcement that was going to go out after he was gone. And after seeing one of the longtime janitors of the White House just going on about his life as if this was not any big deal, Cal said, I can't do this. I got to tell people the truth. Did you agree or was this too little too late?
I agreed. I think it was better than nothing because this was actually happening. There was no more talking around the issue. A leader is there during clear and present danger. Okay. Like, and again, was it too late? Sure. But at the end of the day, the people needed to have the truth.
Shit got wild. And I fully believe that this is how people would react in a situation like this. Going for the guns, running after them. Where are y'all going? People getting shot. Did you feel bad for the White House staffers like Marsha, who was hurt?
I did, because it's like, who made the decision that the people got who got to go, right? She was talking about, I was with you,
Since your first
with him,
term.
first term senator. I feel like, in the season of layoffs, is like people give so much of themselves in their work, but at the end of the day, when they are ready to cut you off,
Mm,
they will do it and keep on moving.
mm, yeah. After they make it onto Air Force One, Cal decided to use a switch that had been created following the Cuban Missile Crisis that would fry every electronic circuit on Earth. Did Cal save humanity from itself and from nuclear war?
So I will say, this is the part of the series that I thought was confusing. I'm like, so was there a giant tsunami or not? And
Yes.
or a nuclear bomb? Like, what's the point of the bomb throwing if a tsunami is already coming?
This was interesting to me too, and I think it took my second watch to fully hear and understand what everyone was saying in the midst of all this chaos. So essentially, yes, the tsunami and what happened weather-wise was real, but what they were saying is, and what even Sinatra was telling him was, if when this happens, the result will also include nuclear war because governments will try to scramble to do what they can to secure resources for themselves. So it became just selfishness on the part of Russia, China, all these places
Right.
that now are starting to bomb each other because they know we have to prepare for what's going to happen after this, which is crazy, but
That's
sad that it could
insane.
happen, right?
Insane.
Yeah. And you even heard the when he got on that phone on that last call before the cabinet or whoever's plane went down, they
Right.
wanted him to release our arsenal of nukes
Yeah.
here in the US,
Yep.
and he refused. Right? So, I mean, you talk about Cal's decision about going on TV. Sure, it was definitely too little, too late, but sure. This one right here, though, I was 100% behind this decision because I
I
agree with him,
agree.
and I think that this conversation with Sinatra spoke volumes about the difference in their humanity and in their
Yeah.
leadership.
I think this is the heart of the teacher coming out. You know what I mean? It's like, I have been push and pull my entire life. This decision I am going to make.
And also, to his point, she's worried about the people of paradise and her not being able to see what's going on and not knowing things are safe or whatever. He's thinking about the good of all humanity in this moment. He said people need to be given a chance, Samantha. Oof.
That's real.
That phone call on that plane between Xavier and his wife, Sterling's going to win an Emmy.
He better.
You talk about rip. Like, I kept the second time I watched it, I had even more anxiety than the first time because I knew I was going to have to watch this scene again and feel these feelings again and just imagine what it would be like for the person you love the most in the world to be in this position and you can't do anything. It was utterly heartbreaking. I'm about to tear up. Oh, it got me. Like when I tell y'all it got me, oh my God. I felt so bad for Terry. I felt so bad for these kids. And this is only one person. Imagine how many other people are huddled up with their loved ones dealing with the potential end of the earth. Whew, it's a lot. This episode 7, y'all. This is a lot.
I've realized in really great series, the penultimate episode usually is fire. Like,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
we've seen
Absolutely.
it with GOT. I used to be a big fan of Outlander. Um, there's been several just excellent shows that episode before the final.
Blows your mind.
Yep.
So Sinatra ends up to wrap the episode playing Xavier a recording of proof that his wife is alive. and she's looking for them. But the trump card, Delora, the trump card is Presley, his daughter. Because as we saw, Presley goes against her father's instructions, meets up with Jeremy because she has gotten a hold of Cal's tablet. The night he died, it was in the bushes. And Jeremy gets his grandfather to unlock it. She basically is trying to find out any information she can on her mother. And then, Jeremy's like, hey, I'm about to reveal this truth to all the people. But while they're at this town square, Killer Jane comes up. And Presley's cool with her, right? So she's like, all right, sure, I'll come with you. Little does she know. Little does she know. I was so pissed at Presley. I was like, Black kids don't do stuff like this.
We
Don't watch
don't.
this show and do
Nope.
nothing like this.
Listen.
You stay where your parents told you to stay.
Pretty
You
much.
do what your daddy told you to do.
I'm like, it's always the knucklehead teenager.
Girl. And following around a little boy? Stop it. Stop it.
He was grieving.
Whatever. I was pissed. I was pissed. I was
I
like,
feel you.
especially because Sinatra is so smug in these scenes.
She is. Shout out to that actress. She is a phenomenal actress.
Julianne Nicholson. Yes.
Yeah, we've actually recapped several projects that she's been on, but she's always been like, I wouldn't say a background character, but like she's definitely in the forefront of
Oh,
this series.
absolutely. And I'm sure I feel like everybody takes pleasure in playing a villain in their acting career. It's something to really dig into, for sure.
Yeah.
We also get the bombshell that Cal's murderer came from outside the bunker. Flipped on his head any theories I had.
I actually was relieved. Because I'm like, at this rate, it's Sinatra, right? Who else would it be? Like, or somebody else that she got in her arsenal.
I'm glad you said this because as we're about to wrap up the season, who was on your suspects list? I had Sinatra and his dad. I thought his dad may have accidentally killed him.
So before I tell you my suspects, I like to say, even though he was a drunk, I think Cal was a lovable drunk. And it's not because he's ridiculously handsome. I think as a character, he was trying to do his best. I think he played into the rich boy stereotype because, I mean, he was one, right? But yes. I think he definitely leaned into it. And I think he was doing the best what he can or what he got, because at the end of the day, he had an emotionally unavailable father and a mother who was no longer there. So it's not like he had all the tools, right, to be the best husband and father and even president, because he didn't even want the job. And I say that because his last day was so fucking tragic. Everybody was upset at him. His mistress was upset because he wouldn't say I love you. His most trusted bodyguard hate him because of what he did with his wife, which honestly he really didn't have much control of. I just felt like he was willing to absorb Xavier's anger and frustration of losing his wife by saying sorry, by saying like, will you ever forgive me? You know what I mean?
I think he still felt some level of fault in it, but yeah.
How so though? She was in Atlanta.
We can talk about it now. This is super debatable, but inevitably I think Cal could feel fault with her and everybody else, right? Because this was information he had that he had to keep secret. And to Xavier's point, he could have tried to press the issue more, but it is debatable whose fault it is, because in my mind it is more Xavier's fault than it is Cal's. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, same. Xavier, you needed to tell your wife, I have learned something catastrophic is coming. Do not do this.
Listen to me, please.
Yes. I'm like,
we need to stay close.
You needed to not say, just roll up to her and say, don't go. That's not, there's no sense of urgency.
Great communication.
No.
And again, his son didn't show up for dinner. His dad told him everything you got is because of me.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh my goodness. But who was on my list? Uh Honestly, Sinatra was the mastermind. The question of who did it was between Billy and Jane.
Hmm. Okay, so you just thought it was one of Sinatra's henchmen.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, curveball. It was actually the librarian. Case surprise, surprise. We get a
Talk
whole
about coming out of
backstory.
nowhere.
Girl, this man was a construction worker or a construction project manager, really, who had helped with the excavation for Paradise and had a vendetta because the workers were forced to keep working despite the powers that be knowing it was toxic and deadly. He was terminated because he knew the truth. And it turns out he had been the one who had attempted that assassination on the president previously. And he ended up killing and assuming the identity of the librarian and having a faux woman named Maggie at the diner in on it as well. I had been so confused my first watch of why he only went after Cal because it seemed so short sighted to me in terms of vendettas. And then, that second watch, I
Yes.
saw the news clippings and I saw, oh, it's Cal's family business that hired
Mm-hmm.
these workers to excavate the site. But at the end of the day, I'm still like, bro, you don't see Sinatra and all these
Sinatra right
billionaires walking
there.
around here?
Exactly. I just was floored by, again, how disposable humans were to these billionaires. Like, when you find out that these people were getting sick for creating a bunker that you and your rich friends were going to huddle in together because of the end of the freaking world. And the other thing that was confusing to me, Ashley, was, again, if everything is flooded, why would you go down? I mean, obviously you had no other choice, but we weren't afraid of leakage.
I guess not the way they built it, right? I mean, I'm sure that was one of the main criteria is to make sure it was structurally sound enough to withstand that type of pressure from water or whatever else would come. So I'm sure it was one of the main criteria and focuses when they were initially like creating it and talking about it. But yeah, I mean, you can't, it's not like, I mean, they weren't about to build up in the sky. So
Right.
this was the alternative. And if you think about it, a lot of people, that is, even in life, when people have like bunkers for the end of the world, it's underground.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, Zuckerberg bought some land and has no bunkers. I'm like, y'all know about something?
Of course they do.
Of course they do.
Is Jane insane? Because she got upset over that Presley was unharmed, but she still comes and gets her revenge on Sinatra by shooting her, puts her ass in the hospital. Is Jane insane?
She is missing a few marbles, as I mentioned before. Um, I don't know what her motivations are, truly.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things they say in like the articles I read. They say the scariest thing about Jane is she seems to be a completely unleashed killer. We don't know what drives her. We don't know if she has a moral compass. We don't know anything about Jane's like inner life
Right.
the way we do at least with Sinatra.
Right.
Thanks to clues and info that Cal left, we see the season wrap with Xavier taking off on a plane to find his wife and other survivors. Bad eyesight be damned. So, Delora, I have some questions to ask as we wrap up this recap. First up, are you satisfied with the way this first season ended?
Yes, I'm satisfied. Um, Even if we didn't have news of whether or not it had continued or not, I felt like it left in a decent space because the main question was who killed Cal and what happened that caused these people to be in paradise.
I was underwhelmed by the finale, if I'm honest. Again, the librarian was a twist, but I wanted the killer to have some type of different level of motivation than what we ended up getting. Like, I almost thought maybe it's like Marsha or somebody like that who has a deep sense of like personal animus because of how things happened and unfolded like that day or something like that. And it just left me wanting a little bit more. But I am glad that I couldn't guess it. Like, it was not something that I could have ever guessed.
Right.
So I did appreciate that. And then Faux Maggie said that the librarian made her do everything she did. I didn't see any force or coercion. Did I miss something?
I didn't see it either. I don't know if they were crocodile tears, like, oh my goodness, I got caught. You know what I mean?
Yes, trying to cover her ass.
Yep. But no, I did not. I didn't see that either.
Do you think people are allowed to have kids in paradise? Because population control seemed very important.
Are you going to stop them? Like, what's the plan? That is my question. How long are your supplies, right? Days of supply, shout out supply chain. Um, is there a life expectancy in terms of we are in this bunker for X many years and then what do we
What?
try? Do we try to surface again? Do we try to rebuild? Because apparently you have the the best and the brightest. So is this an efforts to rebuild after so many years? Like I'd like to know that.
Well, I think the idea was supposed to be that they had created self-sufficiency within the bunker, like we see agriculturally, some things like that. They have figured out how to do things in that capacity that they need to do. So I think that it was indefinite. That's the way I viewed it. Liquor may
Yeah.
run out, some stuff like that, but in terms of like being able to actually survive, I think it felt pretty indefinite the way they showed it in this season. But we'll
And I
see.
also realized that, you know, there were no animals technically, with the exception of that dog.
Yeah,
Everything
animals
was
have been
plant
banned.
based.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. No insects. Yeah, it's crazy.
Nope.
Did Sinatra give that scientist who initially warned her and everyone about this event and invite into paradise? Because we saw him on TV leading up to the inevitable. Like my guy didn't get a spot in paradise.
I don't think so. I didn't see
Damn.
him. Did
It's a
you see him?
it's a cold world, Delora. Because I'm like, if anybody
He's the one
deserves a
that told you
spot,
about it.
exactly,
Right.
exactly, exactly. There was a whole conversation about Presley's hair online. And did you ever see this black hair store that is apparently in
The
paradise
killer
to give her
Nickelon.
those braids?
First of all, shout out to the pretty beads in them. Like I was like, yes, self-expression. My assumption is that she probably did them herself at this rate. Because was there any other black people in paradise besides Agent Robinson?
I hope so.
I'm joking, but
I mean, shit, we don't know how many of us would make it into 25,000, so that's
listen,
fair.
listen,
That's we're only 13% or something like that right now.
correct.
So, yeah.
Why was this? Why is black women's hair always the subject of conversation? I thought she was cute, and I was here for it.
I mean, it was even amongst black people. Like I think
I know.
Sterling said it's a question that he gets often. Like, so they brought braiding hair into paradise. Yes, there was a barber shop as well. So there was thought put into
I
this.
mean, his lineup was crisp.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What are your hopes for season two? Because the show has been renewed.
My hope for season two. It seems like it'll probably be Xavier facing the, brave new world, right? We'll be introduced to new people. I think it's gonna give a bit of, like I said, the Walking Dead vibes of like, what do you do when the rules of humanity are thrown out the window? Are you gonna be ruthless? Are you gonna be fair? Because at the end of the day, it's about survival. And then I'll be interested to know the going on in paradise, because at the end of the day, it is paradise. Is this former VP, now president, is he going to be money hungry? Because there's a void now of
Mm-hmm.
power with
Mm-hmm.
Sinatra being down.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to fill that seat?
Yep.
And out of all the billionaires, I think I only saw one brown face in that group. I was looking, I was like, y'all. And I also was wondering too, I was like, So they're just Americans. There's no Europeans or any other real, cultures.
In this bunker, yes, because this was an American bunker. Other
And
countries may have done
and
their
that's
own
what I was
thing.
gonna say. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's right, because they were focusing on the American. So that
Yeah.
that but I love all the artwork. I'm like, okay, so they got Degas, they got
But you know what's crazy
uh
though is like we saw them taking it off the walls when they called Versailles. I'm like,
yep,
everything else be damned. Take the art.
take the art.
All right. Yeah, I mean, they have said that season two is going to be between both worlds, right? What is left of Earth and then also paradise. And one good question is Xavier going to be able to return? Like, are they going to let him back in?
Yeah. And with him facing the new world, it'd be nice to know how those people survived, right?
Yeah, and I think we're definitely gonna get quite a bit of that. So, final couple questions. I saw a list from Collider of the top 10 characters from this season. Who are your top five characters in order from this season?
Oh, because that's not a lot of pressure. You want me to answer it right now in order? Uh, in terms of what? Who I liked, who I didn't like, who like what?
All of the above. I can go first if it will make it easier.
And am I starting five or one? Does it matter?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right. So starting at number five. Starting at number five, James Collins. He was sweet. He was adorable. He had a fear of the Ferris wheel, which is so endearing because he's a child. So I'm glad he got over that. These are people I like. Number two.
Number four, you mean?
Oh, number four. Thank you. I'm going with Jeremy. He's moody. Like I said, he was a little shit, but I do think his heart, he had good intentions. Uh Number three would be Presley, Black Girl Magic. She was adorable too. And um I was curious on how she was gonna play into the whole murder mystery, having his beloved tablet, but that really didn't go anywhere much. Number two would be Xavier, the star of the show. Again, I appreciated his moral compass, his drive to want to do good in every situation, and the love of his wife. I thought that was a sweet sentiment. Even after all these years, he still, he didn't forget her. And my number one would be Cal. He was a lovable drunk. I think he did his best. Am I giving him too much credit? Probably, but he did die. So I'm going to give him that mercy.
That's fair. All right, my top five, it's not just about people I like, it's just about the compellingness. That's not a word, but how compelling the character was, how effective I thought they were in the character role that they played. And there's some lovability in there as well for some of them. Number five for me is Presley because I thought Presley really held it down, especially from a family dynamic with all the twists and turns that happened, her losing her mother, her having to kind of step into that caretaker role for her brother, all of that. Number four for me is Billy. Billy provided such heart at moments, and his capacity for like love and care for Xavier's children meant a lot to me during those scenes and those relationships. And I just really was rooting for that man to be able to live his best life. I feel bad that his life was cut short. Number three is Sinatra because of the villainy, because of the compelling nature of that character and how forceful her presence was in this first season. Number two for me is Cal because as president, as a character, I did like Cal a lot. I was rooting for Cal. I did believe he had great intentions. and James Marsden crushed that role. Number one for me is Xavier with a bang. Sterling K. Brown acted his ass off in this series. There is nobody that I cared about more in this series than Xavier. Um, and being the main character, living in his shoes a little bit more than everybody else, I was on his side. I don't know what to say. I was on his side. So those are my top five from this first season. I also have to say, just my final thoughts. As a library aide, the Dewey Decimal System being used as a clue in this first season was very satisfying to me. I literally had like glee when he found out what those numbers were.
At first, I
And
thought it was a plain
I didn't know
number at
what it was.
first,
I
but
had
yeah, it
no
was
idea.
hard.
It was very exciting to me though, and I was like, "Oh, the
But
Dewey Decimal System."
I felt like Cal knew something was going to happen to him because felt
He
like he was
did.
leaving a lot of crumbs.
He did.
Mhm.
He
Yeah,
did. He absolutely knew that. He said at one point in one of the scenes, like, I've made some choices and talked about some things that are probably going to get, I'm probably not going to have much longer to kind of be here. He alluded to. So I think he absolutely did know he was going to probably get killed, especially by Sinatra or whoever else. So,
yeah.
what are your final thoughts in addition to everything else?
Yeah, my final thoughts was like the whole puppet master, the billionaire puppet. I'm just like, oh my goodness, when they were writing and filming this, did they know? Did they know that this was going to be the state of our world? Specifically speaking to the United States.
Have to
I'm
ask
like,
Dan and those folks.
I know, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It's like I feel like we always alluded to it in media, but I feel like this was like the most blatant example, especially in recent culture, that really showed that relationship of like who really holds the keys of power in
Yeah.
that dynamic.
Yep.
And I thought that was just really interesting to see as we live it in real time.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, that is our recap of Paradise. Loved this first season. Cannot wait to see what they're going to do with season two, which apparently is going into production sooner rather than later because Dan Fogelman said, I'm so tired of the delays of these shows these days. We are going to bring this season back in a reasonable amount of time. And I am all for that, Dan. Thank you very much.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, you guys, let us know your thoughts on this first season of Paradise. Can't wait to hear from you. Delora, let's get into Hidden Gems. What you got for the week for the people?
Um, yes, I do not have a hidden gem this week. My time was trying to watch this show in time for this
It was
podcast.
8 hour long episodes, to be fair, guys. Like full hour.
So I love y'all. I'll be ready for next week. How about you, Ashley?
All right. I have two, and they're not really hidden because they've definitely been in Netflix's top 10, but I watched them and enjoyed them. And the first one is Running Point on Netflix. This is the Kate Hudson
Yes.
series, playing a faux genie bus, essentially, the dynasty of the Lakers family that exists. Her wardrobe was the real star of this show, if you
I
ask
love
me.
that.
Her outfits
Hmm.
were everything. But the show itself was like cute and endearing. She's kind of like the black sheep of the family. She becomes the president and has to run things, and we have to kind of see her shift and navigate that dynamic with the players. Jay Ellis is playing the head coach, all of that. So I enjoyed the series. I do think with the star power they had, it could have been a little bit better, if I'm honest. But
Mm.
I was here for it, and I want to see a season two.
Mm. It is a Mindy Kaling show.
It is a Mindy Kaling
Did
show.
did it feel like it?
No, 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 no. It
Oh,
didn't
really?
have the same tone as like the Mindy Project or Never Have I Ever or some of those.
Yeah.
So it was his own thing. My second hidden gem is Zero Day on Netflix. This was Robert De Niro. This was Angela Bassett. This is again
Mhm.
political thriller about a former president played by Robert De Niro helping the current president Angela Bassett when there is a crisis
Mm.
and figuring out what happened and why. And there is a lot of moving parts in this series and a lot of like you're trying to figure out, is Robert De Niro a reliable narrator and some things like that. But the show
Mm.
itself, in my opinion, top notch, could have been a feature film type vibe.
Really?
Yes, yes. I thought it was really, really good.
I heard that
So,
people were bashing it though.
no, I thought it was really, really good. So,
Mm,
take my 2 cents as you will, guys, and check out those 2 hidden gems. That is it. That is all. I know we've run a little long today, but again, this was a long series and a lot to unpack.
it
So,
was.
hope you
And they
guys
played
enjoy.
husband and wife in a show, a movie before. Robert De Niro, Angela Bassett.
Interesting.
I don't know. I'm just saying they're meeting together again. That's
Yes.
all.
Rejoining forces of two spectacular actors.
Hmm.
All right, guys. Well, please share this episode with everybody you know. We so appreciate it. We'll be back with more headlines and hot topics on these pop culture streets. But in the meantime, as always, be blessed.
Bye.